Today we are talking about the sixth sense. Everyone has it, but people don't always listen to it. It's powerful when you tune into that intuition. I know when I tune into mine, it's a powerful thing. And women are said to possess a superior intuition and knack for knowing what others are feeling and thinking more than men. But just what is that sixth sense that sometimes guides you? I'm thrilled to introduce Vicki Murphy today, psychic medium and integrative energy expert. Vicki, welcome. So nice to see you this morning.
Thanks so much, Joni. I am so excited to be here talking about this, my favorite topic, as you can imagine. And
I know it's your favorite topic.
Yeah. Well, it's my passion for sure.
Yes, it is.
Enough that I built a business around it, but I love sharing with people and helping everybody else tune in to their intuition.
That is terrific. So before we get started, I'd love for you in the audience to put in the chat how many of you have had an intuitive experience, and please name one intuitive experience that was meaningful to you. So if you could just put that in the chat, we'll read some of those, not all of those, of course, but we would love to know if you've had an intuitive experience yourself and one meaningful one.
Yeah, very exciting. I love to hear about people's experiences with their intuitive moments, and like you said, Joni, we have them all the time throughout life.
So Shannon said here, I'm not sure what an intuitive experience is. Well, you'll be learning all sorts of things today then, Shannon. And I'm sure you've had some. So listen in and you will understand what intuition is by the end of the hour.
Yeah, and I love that question too, Shannon. So thanks for bringing that to the forefront. We are going to talk about what it is for anybody else who is kind of unsure, unclear about what that is. It's different for everybody. I'll say that. And so that's what makes it fun to teach, and also fun to have conversations around. Yeah, okay, and another person is saying the same, Joni.
Yeah, so that's great. We always like to see who's joining us in the audience and what their level of experience is with our topics. So let's go ahead and get started, Vicki. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, thanks, Joni. I've been super aware of my intuitive ability since I was young. And my mom's side of the family was extremely intuitive. So I got a little bit of that from, genetics. And then nurture, my mom did nurture that. We were raised Catholic. We were very open-minded. My dad worked for the CIA. And so he brought a lot of quantum physics to the table. And so I was perfectly able to understand things that were unseen, just by virtue of the way I was nurtured and my nature. So then it developed over time, but there was a time where I got really scared because it was scary sometimes to know things that you thought maybe you should know. And I'm going to talk about that. And so I kind of shut it down until I was in my 20s. And then I started to open up again. And I started to really talk about my intuition and get in and become familiar with it, and use it.
So Vicki, let's hold that right there for a second. But you were an artist first. And so how did you turn that artistic expression into more energy and intuition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. What happened was, as I was going through college, my other passion is art. And I ended up getting my BFA, my Bachelor of Fine Arts. And it was a really specialized degree. Okay, intaglio, print make, monotype artist, or really, a little different. And when I was leaving Michigan, and I love Michigan, leaving my hometown due to a lot of things happening in my life, a relationship, a marriage that I shouldn't have been in, I had my degree and I just said to God in the universe, I need to, I need to be happy and healthy. It was making me unhealthy. So as I left and I went across the country, back in the day, the way we found jobs was to open up the paper. And there it was. I opened up the paper and in the want ads, and this is an intuitive thing.
Yeah.
Wanted, monotype and Talio printmaker artist. I was like, thank you, God. It was my sign. And I'm going to talk about signs. It was my sign that I had made the right decision, that I was going in the right direction for me, for my life purpose. And that kind of is a segue into what intuition is. But that is, a part of the story. And then from there, when my mom, I call it graduated from Earth School when somebody dies. Okay. Because I think of this as like one big school. And I prefer to think that, and from everything that I've seen intuitively, we go home to where we're fully engaged in our energy, if you will, in our spirit and our soul. But here we're monofocused to learn and grow. So when my mom passed, I went to a medium and with my sister-in-law who did it as a gift. And at that time, the message was that your mom, first of all, was on our family vacation and kept wanting really good potato salad. And here, my little niece who was 12, here's intuition for you. Another example. I'll try to give you some examples so you guys can kind of understand a little better. My niece was 12 at the time. And all she kept saying was, I want really good potato salad. And my sister-in-law, her mom was like, she doesn't even like potato salad. What's going on? But my mom, who was in heaven, was coming through, connecting to all of us. And so in that later session, it was a way for her to let us know that she was with us.
Well, that's a really good place to stop right now. I think that's a great story, Vicki. But Hannah, why don't you bring up the slide about what intuition is? And why don't you read that, Vicki, and then add on to what you believe that intuition is.
Perfect. This is a classic example of our definition. It's the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. Or a tangible. Okay. Our intuition allows intangible receiving of information. So you might think of somebody and they call you, that's an intuitive connection. Okay. But further beyond this, okay. And I love that it says we shall allow our intuition to guide us. And this is where intuition is also an innate safety mechanism, right? And as well, it's a tool for our guidance. Now, we get separated from it when we're young. And I'm going to give you an example of how that happens. When you're young, you might run into the room and say, I don't like grandma's basement, or, that person is scary, or I don't like that person. And every adult is going to shush you, right? And they're going to say, shh, don't say that, it's rude, right? So we start to think and believe and feel that either what we know is bad in some manner, shape, or form, or knowing things is bad. And those are two separate things, but we get disconnected from our innate knowing and our wisdom, and we start to think it's bad. So we either shut it down, we don't share it, right? And if you don't use it, you get, it isn't as much a presence in your life. And so again, my mission is to have everybody wake up and allow them in their awakening to make friends with their intuition again and integrate that into their life.
And Vicki, one of the reasons why women have more of an intuitive sense is that we have really been told to feel and to, harness that energy of perception, with one another. And men have been generally told to shut that down, to think more linear way. Thank you. That's not a word that I was just saying. It was trying to come through me. But that it really is true that, as little kids, we have it. We're so in tune with our intuition when we're little. And step by step, as we grow older and older, we lose that until we come back to that sense of knowing and you open up to it more. So let's talk about that. When did you first know that you had that intuitive power?
I knew when I was young, as I mentioned, my grandmother would talk about seeing the dead. And so I thought it was normal. And when you grow up with that, you think it's normal. And then when about age 12, I did this little spell, which, I understand now that all of that is about quantum energy and quantum physics and our inner energy, which is the integrative energy part that I teach. And so it worked. And you will all laugh. I manifested a pair of purple corduroy bell bottoms, hip huggers. Okay. I all in there. And out of the blue the next day, my mom, after I did this little spell, this thing, my mom offered to take me shopping. We didn't do that back when I was age 12. And we walk up to this first rack. I'll never forget. It was at Jacobson's. You guys from Michigan remember Jake's in Birmingham. It was at Jake's on the rack. And there was one pair, my size, purple corduroy hip hugger bell bottoms. Well, that scared me. That I don't know if it was the power behind that, but I just never did that again. Was like, it was scary to have that. So I didn't open up again until in my 20s. And that was when I became aware, and then really in my 30s, when I became aware of in my art that I was having unique conversations spiritually about the composition. And I didn't realize that until my husband, who was next to me, pointed it out. And I thought that everybody did that. So that's kind of my awakening moment.
Interesting. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is that I also grew up with the knowledge, we called it ESP in our family, and that, while we never had the experience about what your grandma did about talking with the dead, it was always an inner knowing that there was something more going on in the universe, that we could create things by manifesting, that we would have those aha moments. Like, for instance, when I was little, I must have been 7 or 8. I'm like, we need to call my great aunt. And I was not connected with her, at a deep level, but I'm like, we have to call her. We have to call her. And I remember this moment like it was yesterday. And I was so insistent that they finally called. And it turned out that she had almost died. She was so sick. And I don't really remember the rest of the story, but that inner knowing, I'm like, you have to make this phone call right now. And I've had that a lot over the years, but it was nurtured in me from a very young age, really not just from my mom and my grandma, whom I grew up with, but from other members of our family who have said, that they had this inner sense. If you didn't have that upbringing, it can feel kind of weird and scary when you have those aha moments, kind of like what you just said when you were 12. What would you say to people who are a little freaked out by it?
Yeah.
Freaked out by this inner knowing or inner knowledge that we have, this intuition.
Yeah. Well, first of all, and that kind of goes into one of the tips I'm going to share, but as you become aware of your abilities and how you receive, you also want to learn how to manage your receiving and have healthy boundaries. And that's, part of intuitive development. Intuition is like, think of it as a primordial survival instinct. It's what animals have that makes them run for high ground before a tsunami comes in. And they know well in advance, kind of what you were explaining, that claircognizance is what that is, that you just described, Joni. And that's that inner knowing. And the reason, again, that children have that knowing is we're still connected. It hasn't been socialized out of us as much, and so to have that clear connection, that intuition being that strong, where you were really insistent, you knew that something was wrong and that you didn't know what, but you just had this knowing that you had to call. Yeah, it's natural. we don't want to let fear get in the way. And that again is another one of the tips that I'm going to talk about. If you allow fear to get in the way, it's going to block that. But why would you need it? Why do you want it if it is scary, right? There's actually great benefit to operating with all of you, loving all of you. It raises your frequency. It helps you manifest more. It allows you to have ease in your life. Intuition is a beautiful gift that you can allow yourself to access and use in so many ways that are beyond just keeping you safe. It does help guide you to your purpose. And in everyday intuition, my goodness, I go shopping intuitively for my foods. Okay, for instance, and
That's a whole nother level, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, when you're driving, it's great to really know and understand your connection, because it's going to help you avoid certain challenges while you're driving. I've had a very clear message to turn left, and I was very thankful I did. There was an